It's WG, bring you SNB, and we just acquired Pavana. So in this video I'll be showing you how you can get Pavana, which is actually surprisingly easy and surprisingly fast, as well as also if she's worth the grind and what she can do in general. So because it interests you the most, how do you actually get Pavana? It all balances on a single story level, and that is your ability to beat story level 12-3. If you beat 12-3, you unlock the Crucible game mode, which is the second PvP game mode right here. And this is where Pavana becomes easy to get. The moment you unlock the Crucible, you basically start a 2-week timer. And once that 2-week timer runs out, you will have yourself a Pavana. And it's almost inescapable, right? So the way this works is pretty simple. There's a bunch of ranks and you can try to rank high, you can try to rank low, but this is not important. The most important part is that you get into the lowest, very lowest rank possible, and you see that you get 400 arena coins an hour. 400 arena coins an hour. Do you think, does it make a difference if you rank higher? If you are ranked number 1 in the arena or in the Crucible for your server base, then you still only get less than 10% more. So it does not make a difference which rank you are. Just make yourself to Freeman 1, Freeman 2, Lone Wolf, whatever else it might be. And that is because if you do the math, you realize once you unlock the Crucible, you get 9,600 of these coins every single day, which means at maximum, you'll basically get Pavana around the 14 to 15 day mark, depending on if you also buy extra crystal shards and your performance in the arena. But you'll basically be on a 2-week timer that is easily going to run out, and you will be able to buy yourself your first copy of Pavana. So now that you know how rather simple it is to get a Pavana, is she worth the grind or should you rather buy crystal balls? Let's quickly go over what she does, then I'll be showing you some gameplay, and then you can, I guess, make that decision for yourself. But already, first one, if you don't have the time or the patience, I would say at least getting the 150k copy is 100% worth it. It is a free SSR after all, and she is by no means weak. What does Pavana do? Let's actually start with the basic. The basic is super simple, it's extra damage, it doesn't do much. So now what does Pavana actually do? Let's go through it one by one. Number 1, she's a charge unit. Number 2, she's a medium armor unit, which means she has survivability, but she has less of a focus towards attack, which means that already hints towards her not being your main DPS, more of like a support-ish type hero. Also fits her enchanter class, as well as making her a crescent moon, dealing magic damage. Her basic attack is super straightforward, dealing 100% damage to the target, which can obviously be leveled up, but it's not something you really have to touch. This is where things get interesting, and that is starting from the special. Every 4 basic attacks, she shoots a piercing shot that penetrates the target and everything behind and to the target as well as enemies in the path. The moment they get hit, they will be inflicted with sleep for 4 seconds. And the way sleep works in this game is quite different to others, and that is sleep only gets broken if the target receives 25% of their max HP worth of damage during the sleep period, otherwise they will be staying asleep. So a sleep for 4 seconds from the special, and then a sleep for 6 seconds from the ultimate. Here important to know is you cannot target it freely like a Daikalo, but you only target it on enemies. So you move it onto enemies to send them asleep. But what ties it all together and which makes this character to a degree viable and also a, you could say, competitor to a Daikalo in the lightest of sense, is that when an enemy with sleep is awakened by taking damage, meaning they take 25% of their max HP and damage within either the 4 or 6 seconds, they will be inflicted with damage taken up, which is the same one that Daikalo inflicts, so 15% more damage taken. If the sleep expires naturally and you weren't able to do 25% max HP in that window, you actually apply all damage dealt down, which means 15% less damage dealt by the enemies that just awoken from your sleep. So that's Pavana's basic kit. That is the way she works, and that is what she does. So right here, this will be the Pavana build we'll be using for this video, which is tier 7 gear on level 3, tier 7 gear level 0, tier 7 gear level 1, and a tier 7 faction piece, which just overall increases the HP and magic defense gain, nothing offensive. Artifact wise, you have a couple of choices, but considering she's not a main DPS, you can even go with something defensive like the Fruit of Immortality or the Silver Shadow Chronometer to heal yourself when summons die or heal yourself when the HP drops. But the most, the simplest connection is just to be using the debuff artifact, because when she applies the sleep, she'll then be able to do more damage against those targets. So that is Pavana, that is the build. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Now, let's actually start off with, I would say, something of the almost main area of her, and that is we just pick a random defense and actually challenge this guy, and you'll see some, you could say, good old Pavana gameplay. So this is the team I yesterday used. It is a pretty straightforward team with a Van Helsing, a Cappella, Starry-Eyed, a Bella, and then a good old Pavana right here. And the ultimate order is going to be the following: a Van Helsing into a Pavana into a Starry-Eyed Iona. So you should get a good idea of what she's capable of doing based on this. So enemy starts off with a Cappella, is whatever. We start off with our Van Helsing to kill the enemy summons, to then keep his ultimate longer active and start our damage period. And then Pavana's ult is ready and it will target a unit. Let's see who it actually targets. It actually targeted Lamia plus Bella. You've seen it briefly right there. And then also the good part about the sleep is it is happening after basic attacks, which means there's also a chance for example, especially if you need to kill someone that is highly defensive, what ends up happening is that she's going to, for example, send a Starry-Eyed Iona, send someone else asleep. So right here, let's have a look at a second fight, and after that we go into something more traditional gameplay wise, just so you can get a closer idea of how it looks outside of Arena, because Arena, while sleep is most likely one of the strongest buffs in Arena, it isn't quite the best showcase in what can happen. So for example, you saw right there, Pavana and ult targeting in Arena doesn't always go hand to hand. She actually applied her sleep to a summon, which didn't do much, right? Didn't do much, led to us actually losing here. But the main game plan with the Pavana in Arena is going to be you shutting down the enemy and also potentially having her in your defensive formation to just make sure the enemy cannot really bother you as much. So let's see. Unfortunately, for most content, we are heavily penalized in BP, because we've kind of pushed ourselves as far as reasonable. So we probably won't be able to defeat any stages, but at least you will be able to see what Pavana will be able to do. So for example, right here, we'll just start off with a pretty basic hand in Del Carlo, and then yeah. So goal for this stage, for example, is for us to survive until reinforcements arrive. So you see how Del Carlo, for example, can then use her ultimate right here to make sure all these enemies at least get shut down for quite a bit, so we can buy ourselves some time, which we're definitely going to need. You can see it is the issues of low BP where our tank is pretty much getting wrecked. And then this is what I meant with targeting. You see how it's not fluid with the Del Carlo, but more of a one enemy and then everything around it situation. So it is definitely harder to aim. And then you see we hit the ability, we get the 6-second sleep, and because we don't do enough damage, they will awaken from that sleep with the reduced damage dealt, leading to overall enhanced survivability for our team. And then here we have the reinforcements. And let's see, I mean, if we're really lucky, which I kind of doubt, if we're really lucky, we are actually going to be able to stall ourselves through this. But that would be a very big surprise to me personally. But alright, let's see. So the guards are here. Let's try to run away and hopefully have these guards block some of this damage. Yeah, this is very surprising. I actually tried this yesterday and we got close, but we weren't quite able to make this work. So I am very surprised that this is working. And if you did pay attention, you would have probably seen also the impact of her applying these sleeps even without having to ult with her, which works really well in like stall comps. So yeah, somehow we were able to make this work. Yeah, I guess it's a good example of what she was able to do, right? But if you then check out the damage numbers, you kind of see that Pavana obviously didn't do much. She probably also died quite fast. There was a lot going on the screen, so it's a bit harder to tell. But overall, where do I expect Pavana to shine? What do I think she'll be able to do? Let's check her out in her faction in general. So if we check out Pavana's faction, we obviously have the main enchanter, which is going to be a cappella, and then we have a healer and Edina, but Pavana can kind of, yeah, she can kind of be like that second support or even a support alongside a cappella. So for example, if you have to run a church team, it could be something like a Van Helsing, a cappella, Pavana, a Theophane and an Edina, or an Yggdrasil and an Edina, or any combination of the like, because there is at least enough combination and synergy between the two. And overall, her ult animation looks quite nice. She has the looks needed to pull this off. And I gotta be honest with you here, there were a lot of questions of, do I really need to buy, do I buy these crystal balls? And in my opinion, not really, because the big issue with you getting higher level skills isn't necessarily going to be your crystal ball accumulation, but actually the accumulation of all the other resources needed. A whole bunch of these golden scrolls, a whole bunch of the purple scrolls, and depending on how split up your resources are between other characters. Like for example, for me personally, I have quite a few abilities on level 4, and then just a tiny few above 5 and below. You're most likely going to run out of resources rather than out of crystal balls. So that is also another reason why it can be quite useful to just save her for Pavana, because she'll at least have more value than crystal balls that then don't do anything for you. On the note of gear, depending on if you need it, it is quite useful, but I gotta be honest with you here, the moment you make it to the 12-8 boss, you're going to find better gear than tier 6 with a faction, and that's just the reality of things. So I hope this gave you an idea of Pavana and if she's actually worth it. There might be content in the future coming where there's also more of a stall slash aggressive gameplay needed. And don't forget, Pavana will have the synergy together with Lorelei that arrives in just 2 days. And Lorelei will be able to deal increased damage against sleeping enemies, have interactions with sleeping enemies, and also circumvent the negative on the sleep that if Lorelei is to damage a sleeping enemy, it does not count towards the 25% max HP threshold. So that's been it, and as always, we see each other in the next one. Peace!